Welcome to Expats Listen with Ryan and Liz, the podcast where we tell the truth about living abroad, being expats, being immigrants, and how things aren't always so picture perfect as they might seem. But sometimes they're really hard, and sometimes there are beautiful, wonderful surprises.
I'm Ryan, and I'm a South African living in Portugal as an expat now.
And I'm Liz, and I am originally from New York and also living in Portugal. So our episode, Don't Move to Portugal Unless, is one of our most popular. If you haven't listened to that one yet, go back and listen. You can come back to this when you're done. We talk about some of the things that you might not expect to be really difficult when you make the move to Portugal. And so many of the things that both Ryan and I were surprised by in the move to Portugal that really kind of shook us and made us work a bit harder than we expected to.
So we've had a very long week, just lots of admin, lots of these annoying inconveniences. So we thought that this week we would actually do something that would be a little bit happier, maybe a topic that sort of brings a bit of a smile to our face. And what that is discussing the amazing surprises that we got in Portugal, which certainly we didn't expect, but changed our lives in the best way. So Liz, why don't you lead us off here?
All right, my first one is a small one, but was a delight from day one, that there are fresh orange juice machines in almost every supermarket in the country. So you know the machine where you put the oranges on top and then they go down and they get squeezed into the bottle. And these are not expensive. They are under €1 for a small bottle. They're maybe €2 for a liter, and fresh, delicious orange juice can be yours every single day in this country. And I just think that that is so cool.
It's super cool. I don't really like orange juice as much as Liz does. So when I go to the supermarket and I'm on my own, I will always get Liz a bottle of that juice. But my favorite thing about it is just the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
You know, seeing the orange go in from the top and then it gets squished and you see it getting squished and then the juice coming out. I don't know why, but there's something so satisfying about it. Like, you know that it's real juice. Like, there's the juice that's going to be in my tummy coming down this machine. I really enjoy that too.
And in the winter, the pomegranate juice machines, I get very, 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 very excited about those.
Yeah.
What's your first one, Ryan?
Mine is a bit mine is a bit more of a deeper and existential one than orange juice. But one of the things that really blew me away when we first moved to Portugal was the way in which older people carry themselves. And, you know, I hope this doesn't offend anyone who's of a certain age. Certainly we are there, if not approaching it very fast. But once you get, I would say, above like 40, 45, 50, you know, life goes in a different direction. Your body changes, your feelings change because you are at an older age, I guess. You know, you're not like decrepit or anything, but you are older. And in our societies, in South Africa and certainly in the USA, there's a lot of chatter and media and just general coverage of people really being unhappy about getting old. And it's really sad to see.
For sure. The makeup industry, Botox, there are so many surgeries that people are undergoing these days in order to look an age that they are not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a humanity thing, isn't it? So it's not just now. It's always been this disgust with ourselves at getting over the hill. And I know that I expected that to be almost universal, everyone feeling the same way. But when we arrived here, I was really taken aback by the fact that so many people of that age are embracing it. So you will see a woman walking down the road with a full glorious head of gray hair. And
it's so normal.
And it's so normal. She doesn't stand out for it. He doesn't stand out for it. It's men as well. And it's just such a nice thing to see. You don't see ridiculous amounts of makeup being worn by people who are a bit older trying to conceal it. I don't really see too much Botox and fillers.
Almost never.
Almost never. I know that it is growing. I know that that is something that's becoming more of a thing for more people, and I understand why. But in my experience of Portugal since I arrived, I think that that's one of my favorite things, because I think there's so much beauty in it. It's a different kind of beauty. It's a different kind of grace. It's a different type of dignity that people have got.
I think grace really is the word there, that you're getting old with grace. Growing old is a privilege.
Ew.
And Portugal is the third oldest country in the world, I believe.
Yes, Portugal does have a significant number of older people as the population, and it's a big part of how the country finds its identity, you know?
Completely. And I don't think that people are running away from the idea of getting old. They're looking at it as a privilege. They're looking at it as something that is good in society, to have older people, to respect those older people, that they have a real place in society. No one is pushing them to the margins. And I think that not being scared of getting older is really part of respecting the people who are already older.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. It's just really one of those like nice things to see about a society where older people are valued, older people feel they have a place.
Yeah.
There's a level of respect that's extended to all people regardless of the age they carry. It's really cool, and that was one of my favorite things that surprised me when I moved here. What's your next one?
My next one is the sport of paddle. So before we moved to Portugal, I had never heard of paddle. And when we came to Lisbon, we saw these paddle courts everywhere and didn't really think too much of it. We were rowing when we were in Lisbon and just kind of didn't have time and didn't have the interest. And when we moved to Setúbal, we started playing tennis a little bit. And then some friends of ours were like, oh, do you want to play paddle with us? We said, sure, why not? So we started this game, and you guys, paddle is such a cool sport. It is so fun.
Yeah, so paddle is one of those sports that really bites into you in terms of the fanaticism of it very quickly. So after you have your first session, you are going to just fall in love with the sport and you're on your way on some kind of paddle journey.
Just a quick description. Paddle is basically tennis in a box. So you play doubles 2-on-2, and it is a tennis ball. It's a racket sport. So you've got a racket. It's a little bit different than a tennis racket, but you're hitting a tennis ball with your racket. The rules are the same as tennis, basically, except for the fact that you're in a box. So after the ball bounces on the ground, it can bounce on one of the walls, and then you can still play the ball. And what this meant is that when we were playing tennis, as very below average tennis players, we spent maybe 50% of the time we were playing chasing the ball, maybe even more than that. But with paddle, you're never chasing after the ball. You can keep playing. The rallies go for a lot longer, and it feels so much more exciting. I think that's where that bite comes from, because you really feel like you are achieving something, even if you're at a very below average level.
Well, that's it. So certainly we have been at a very low level for a long time, and I expect us to stick around there for another long time. But I think one of my favorite things about it is being able to play with people who are much better than you or much worse than you and still have fun.
Yeah.
Whereas when you play tennis, if you're playing against someone who's really good, man, like there is not going to be any kind of competition or rally. So the points are going to be over immediately, and you're going to spend most of your time just picking up the ball like a sucker on a hot day. So paddle really gets everyone involved. It's properly about fun, which I really enjoy.
And a big part of it is that there are 4 players on the court at the same time. So it's very, very easy to use paddle to make friends. And both of us have done that completely.
I think that's, there's no way of hiding from the fact that paddle has been at the forefront and a big platform of our entire social life. And it's really played such a big role for us in making friends and creating relationships and building community. So many of the people who we call close friends and family now in Portugal have been part of our paddle journey. And if I look back, it's very seldom that I actually fantasize about actually playing paddle as a sport because I'm so bad at it. But
He's lying. He's very good.
but I think having that time with people, being able to share it as an experience that you're doing is really so healthy.
Yeah.
Because you're doing something that's good for you physically, you're doing something that's good for you mentally, you're outside most of the time, you're meeting new people, and it's just really such a good thing. I'm part of a group of guys who play a couple of times a week. And really, it's almost a bit stereotypical where if someone says, hey, how do men relate to each other? How are they supposed to manage stress? And one of the cliche suggestions is, have you ever tried joining a sports group with some men similar to you? And I'm like, yes, I do. I have a group of men just like that, and we go and we play. And it's really interesting because so often, we play a very low standard of paddle. Sometimes the ball will go up in the air and it's set for an amazing smash that could look like it came out of the sports highlight. And a guy will hit the ball as hard as he possibly can straight into the ground in complete failure. But that action is not necessarily about the sport. It's sometimes about getting rid of the frustration that he's carried for the rest of the week. And now he's got the opportunity to get rid of that. And then we will all have a laugh at him, and then he will laugh too. And then we'll have a drink after the game, and everyone's feeling better, and he's in much better shape going home to his family. And I think having that opportunity for us all has been such a blessing, really.
It's true. We need those outlets. And I think before we found paddle, most of the socializing that we were doing was, do you want to meet for a drink? Do you want to meet for food? Meeting for a drink, meeting for food is fine. But it's so much nicer to me when we meet for sport and we play some sport, we play some paddle, and then have the drink afterward, or we play some paddle and then have the food afterward. I love meeting people at the gym, meeting people for paddle, meeting people for an activity before the food or the drink. I just think that my mind is more clear. I enjoy myself more, and we open up so much more. When you just meet for a drink, you kind of talk about the same things. But when you meet for paddle first and you're sweating and you're moving and you've done something that you thought was amazing, and then you did something that was so ridiculous that everyone had to laugh at you, it opens up a different part of your brain, and it really does allow you to and relax and talk more deeply about your life.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think more than that as well is that we end up going to some interesting places. We meet people who we never thought we would have met.
Yeah.
We experience things that we would have never experienced. We've got a couple that we play with in a town that's maybe 20 or 30 minutes outside of our hometown, who we play with maybe once a month. And we would never go to the town that they live in if it wasn't for us playing paddle with them on that once a month occasion. And it's really such a treat to be able to say, well, we've got friends in a tiny little village that we would have never maintained a relationship with those people if we weren't playing that paddle game. And, I know for us it's paddle. For other people it could be kayaking, it could be playing tennis, it could be going on hikes. But having that healthy, positive activity to build some type of social community with and keep yourself active has been so transformative for us since we arrived. And when we arrived, we had no idea the sport even existed.
Exactly. I think that's the whole point of this happy surprise is that it's a sport that we never even heard of and we had no idea existed.
Yeah.
And now it's such an integral part of our lives. We are literally playing paddle 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week.
Yeah, no, it's really been a fun journey. It's really been nice to plug into that.
All right. What's your next one, Ryan? Happy surprise.
Happy surprise. In the mid-90s, my mom perfected her sponge cake recipe.
Oof.
And really just a plain white cake that she would bake maybe once every couple of months. And it was not even frosted. It was just made in a cooking pot and put in the oven and used as a baking tin. And it was so comforting and it was so simple. And the day my mom made her last sponge cake for me was the last day that I ate that sponge cake, obviously. And for the rest of my life, I sat and thought, well, I will always remember that cake as being the best cake that I had ever eaten, just because of its nostalgia and what it meant to me. And I gave up ever having that cake. Fast forward to me starting my new life here in Portugal. I went down to the local Pingo Doce, which is the little supermarket across the road from us, and I saw they had a confectionery treat, a little cake for sale for 60 cents.
60 cents.
And I thought, you know what? I've lived here for so long. Let me start eating more of the pastries that they offer in this country. And I bought this particular little cake and I took it home and I ate it. And it was exactly the same as my mom's sponge cake from the 90s. And they sell hundreds or thousands of these things at every little bakery and corner cafe in the Portuguese world.
And it's called cake, but it's spelled Queue. So we call it KK.
KK, it's a bit sassy, but yes, and they've got this delicious KK that they sell in the supermarket at any time. You can go in and buy this, and it tastes exactly like my childhood. What's your next one, Liz?
All right. My next one is that small towns in Portugal are full of so much more personality and vibrancy than we had expected. I think it's really interesting when you talk about where do you want to go in Portugal? And people are listing off these bigger places and these bigger cities and even bigger like touristy places that people really enjoy going to. Our favorite places in Portugal are probably the places that we had never heard of before. And the places that are so small and so unique. Like Luso stands out to me, which is a tiny, tiny town in the north interior of Portugal. And it was stunningly beautiful. Yeah. And we had such a good time there. And the only reason we stayed there is because we happened to find a cheap hotel that was dog friendly.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, that looks nice. Let's go there. And then we were blown away by this small town. And that has happened to us so many times to the point where now I'm not choosing where to go in Portugal based on the town anymore. I'm choosing based on a hotel or an Airbnb and choosing a property that looks kind of cool. And then we just explore whatever's nearby when we're there. And I think it's been such a cool way to see the country because I never would have heard of most of these places. And I'm not looking for any kind of stereotypical experience. I think there's real beauty in arriving in a place and knowing nothing and being like, okay, let's see, like, what do you have to offer? And then we are almost always pleasantly surprised.
I think it's been huge for us in how we've experienced this country because all of a sudden it went from, well, we're going from point A to point B for this experience, and now it being everything from point A to point B is going to be the experience. And I don't know how many times we've stumbled into a place that we didn't ever know existed and find something really like, wow, I can't believe that exists. Did you see how stunning that was? Did you see how interesting this was? And there isn't even any mention of it on Google Maps or any reasonable mention of it on Google search results or anything. So much of this stuff isn't even documented, and you would only ever know that it's there by going there and experiencing it. And I'll go further and maybe be a little bit controversial, I would say, and kind of celebrate the fact that it isn't readily available to everyone.
Yeah.
That it isn't publicized and put on some type of BuzzFeed list, and that there aren't 10,000 really bad Instagrammers telling the world to go to each one of these places, because I really feel like that's the fastest way for those places to get destroyed. I'm so tired, if I'm honest, of going to places and paying 25 times the price for a cup of coffee because this was in someone's Instagram reel that got 35 billion views. I'm so tired of not being able to take a seat and have a small meal at a place because I can't get a table there because someone who was very loud and colorful on Instagram said this is the best something in the world ever. And that whole spiel.
For sure. And in Portugal, there are so many tourists, especially in the summer. Lisbon is packed with tourists. Yeah. But as soon as you go to the interior of the country, as soon as you leave the coast, you can find these towns that really are small and quite Portuguese still. They're not made for tourists anymore. They're still...
Because that's the thing, is that I think that what's nice is that a lot of these small towns have these really cool attractions about them, these really cool characteristics. But what's really nice is the fact that those little characteristics might not be enough to develop massive infrastructure around it and bring the whole world there. So are you really going to travel from Lisbon and travel 2 hours, let's say during the summer, into an area where the temperature's upwards of 45 degrees for you to swim in a little tidal pool fed by a mountain stream? It's an incredible experience. It really is. But I don't know if it's worth doing the 2 hours to go and get there. And I'm kind of glad that you're not going to do it, because I'm willing to go do it because it's such a unique and special experience. And yeah, I know it's, if anyone's out there saying Ryan's gatekeeping, I'm going to have trouble disagreeing with you.
All right. Well, what's your next one, Ryan?
So many children around the world are so annoying. It's a plague. It's a problem that we have discovered across this planet. So many parents saying, no, our children will never hear the word no because we heard it when we were kids and it damaged us. And so now these children are all terrible. But in Portugal, one of the things that really I was not expecting was how children are treated by their parents and general society as being integrated into the experience that we all share in a particular place, and they are held to a standard that makes sure that we're all okay. Parents are so even-tempered and reasonable with their children in what I've seen, in making sure that they behave well. And even when a child does lose control at times, because children are children, they aren't really dealt with in any extreme way, but dealt with in quite a cool, calm and collected way.
Yeah. So
that everything can continue almost as normal in whatever situation that happens to be. So if you're at a supermarket and, little Joao, who's 3 years old, is not getting the sweetie that he wants, and he starts crying, and it does happen, number one, that crying isn't very extreme or very violent or anything.
Yeah, it's not accompanied by throwing himself on the floor and kicking and screaming.
No one's thrashing about or anything like that. And even with the little bit of reaction little baby Joao's giving, his mom Joanna is just going to have a quiet word with him and say, listen, this is what's going to happen. This is what's not going to happen. And little baby Joao is back on track, And I've really come to appreciate that. I think that there's almost something to learn about that, because not only does it make such a big difference at that age for everyone, but I think it also goes such a long way in creating children who become adults eventually, who still have an even sense of temper and an even way of looking at the world and some reasonable level of emotional and impulse control, which really is good.
I think you see it at every stage because, yes, you're not seeing tantrums from the 3 and under crowd, but you're also seeing 8-year-olds, 7, 8, 9-year-olds who are able to go to the supermarket by themselves and go to the beach with their friend, and they have a lot more freedom and they don't abuse it. And then you're able to see groups of teenagers get together and have a wholesome night of karaoke before they go to their grandma's house for dinner. And I think that there's really something to be said about not being so controlling of these children that they're getting in trouble for every single thing.
Yeah.
And also not being so loose with these children that they can get away with anything. And I think it's really created this great balance, because what you're saying, I agree completely. The level of respect that children have for all other members of society seems really high. And I think that they do have a good amount of freedom to see who they are.
Yeah, I think that's really a great thing to experience. And one of my favorite things about that is watching young people, teenagers, hang out with the older family members.
Yeah.
Because I remember in my day being so like embarrassed and mortified of needing to hang out with the old people everywhere. And like Portuguese children just don't have that in general. I love being able to witness real families spending real quality time where they're all invested. No one is feeling embarrassed or shy because they're holding grandma's hand up and down the stairs at age 16. They're there, they're invested in that experience, and I love it. And I think that, you know, the people who are responsible, the parents, for creating this really deserve that credit.
Completely.
Next one, Lizzie.
All right. My next is that Portugal is a small country and nothing's really more than a 3-hour drive away from Lisbon. But it's so much more diverse than I expected it to be, with different cultures and customs and weather and terrain. And you really can get a quite different experience with a short drive. In our episode, Don't Move to Portugal Unless, we did tell you that there is generally no air conditioning or heat in Portuguese houses. And one day it was around 40 degrees Celsius, which is 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And I was looking at the weather and trying to figure out when it might cool down a bit. And I noticed on the weather map this little dot of a different color. And it was in a town about an hour away. And it said that it was only 30 degrees there, which is 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So this 10 degrees Celsius difference, 20 degree Fahrenheit difference is massive, especially when you're just sitting there melting. And I said to Ryan, do you think it's true?
I did not think it was true. I think it was lies. I think that it was an inaccurate weather map.
He did not believe it at all. And I was like, come on, let's just go and let's see. Let's bet. If it is actually 30 degrees there, I get 20 euro. If it's not, then you get 20 euro.
The money wasn't a thing for me. It was the pride. It was knowing that I was right. The victory in that.
I wanted the money. I also wanted the pride, but I wanted the money. And we get in the car and we start driving and it's 40 degrees and we drive for about 15 minutes and still 40 degrees. We drive for 10 more minutes and now we're almost halfway and it's 41. And now I'm really starting to sweat because I am going to lose this bet and I do not want to lose this bet. But it said that it was 30 degrees. It has to get cooler. It has to. And we're still driving. And we're still driving. And now Ryan is talking a lot of smack.
It's getting hotter. It's not even slowly getting colder. It's getting hot. Like it's worse than it was when we were at home, Liz. Damn it.
And we keep driving. And then all of a sudden, when we're about 10 minutes away, it goes 39, 38. 37. And I'm like, Ryan, look, because it's displayed on the dashboard of the car and we could both very clearly see it. And now we get to about 33 and that's when Ryan starts to sweat.
It was not my finest moment, and I still believe there was witchcraft involved in this whole thing.
And we keep going and we keep going. And as we drive into the sign that says, welcome to this town, it changes over to 30 degrees and I was victorious. And it actually was a 10 degrees Celsius difference with a 1 hour drive. And it was incredible because that 10 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees Fahrenheit was the difference between being quite miserable and being quite comfortable.
Yeah, we ended up actually having quite a nice day that day. We were able to walk around. We had some ice cream. We had a pizza. We sat outside. It was actually quite pleasant. Whereas where we were coming from, our hometown, things were, I mean, like the road was melting a little bit. That's how hot it was getting. So things really did take a drastic turn just 60 minutes away from our house.
And I think that's something I definitely didn't expect when coming to Portugal, that you would be able to get to something that felt so different in such a short time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big thing that a lot of people don't realize when they move to a place like Portugal, the variety of sort of biospheres and the diversity in how the country's put together, but also how close it is. So, where we live is a bit more central in the country. So we've got a unique, I don't know, habitat that we live in. And if you go north, it's a lot greener. There are these forests. It's a lot wetter. There's a lot more rain.
Yeah.
And then if you go further south or down to the bottom to the Algarve, you're almost walking into sort of a Moroccan, North African kind of climate, and it's completely different. And even within those areas, you can go to different places within those 3 different areas and the interior or the coast, and it gets even more different, know? And I think that's such an amazing thing to live in such a small country with so much diversity. And I absolutely love it. And you don't need to travel very far to go and experience it. You can do something different every weekend. And that's what we've been doing. And we've gotten the opportunity to see and experience so much variety. Which has been really cool.
It's been really great. And what's your next one, Ryan?
So when I first heard about Portugal as a potential place for us to live, Liz said to me, I just want you to know no one speaks a word of English in that country. You are going to be so screwed, Ryan. Good luck to you, pal.
To be fair, I had really only been to a very small part of the very northeastern tip of Portugal, where not a lot of people spoke English. And I was assuming that the rest of the country was like that. And I just said to him, I wanted to warn him that he would need to learn Portuguese and he would need to learn it quickly.
So she used that tiny experience to terrorize me, listeners. And so she said, no, look, you need to know how to speak Portuguese, man. That's not a negotiable. You're going to struggle if you go there and you don't know how this language works. And I was prepared for that, honestly, when I first arrived. And it took a while for me to suss out what the actual situation was. And even if Liz was 100% correct, I would have needed to have figured out what that would have meant for me.
Yeah.
And, it took some time. And then I discovered that pretty much everyone under the age of like 40 speaks English incredibly well.
Yeah.
And in certain situations, they quite enjoy speaking English. They enjoy practicing their English. They enjoy teaching you Portuguese. They enjoy having a little giggle at your efforts at the language. They ask for help in their English, and they're just nice people. And I really wasn't expecting so many people to speak English. That was the big surprise for me. And I think even to this day, I'm really sometimes quite annoyed by the fact that so many people speak English from Portugal, because it really sometimes holds me back from developing my Portuguese skills. So I would go to a restaurant, a coffee shop for a haircut or whatever it might be, and start having the conversation in Portuguese with my admittedly terrible Portuguese. And the person who I'd be speaking to would just be very quick to switch to English because they just want to save themselves so much stress of needing to listen to me babble like a little baby Portuguese person. And I don't know. It's bittersweet, It's easier for me, of course, when things are done in English, but I know that it holds me back from integrating further into society. So yeah, English is a lot more widely spoken out here than I ever expected, and certainly a lot more than Liz told me.
All right, Ryan, what's next for you?
Quick one. Accessible, delicious, fresh fish. It is not something that I grew up eating. It's not something that's really available for most South African people in general. And I feel very sad for not having enjoyed fish up until moving here. And in Portugal, you're able to go down to the market, you're able to go down to a good restaurant and get some of the best fish that you will ever experience over the course of your life. And I would encourage anyone who hasn't eaten much fish in life to actually give it a go if and when they come to Portugal, because you build up a habit of saying no to fish because you never really ever ate it. And so you miss out potentially when you come here and you don't gravitate towards this actually amazing thing. And I would say this, I'm not a big fan of encouraging people to spend excessively. But if you do get the opportunity to come to Portugal and you go to a good fish restaurant, get the biggest fish that you can afford, because the bigger the fish, generally, the better it tastes.
And you can share it. Obviously, you're getting a bigger fish. You're going to share it with 4 people, 6 people. If you can get a group of people together and order a giant fish, you are going to have an amazing meal.
It's so luxurious. Honestly, Liz and I today, when we're in Portugal, we look at getting fish as being such a treat. I don't order steak when we go out. I don't generally order chicken when we go out. If we're going to go out for dinner, I'm going to say, let's go get fish, because they'll cook it so well. The fish will be so good, and we'll get the best fish we can get at the time. And I feel like it's such a treat.
And that really is such a surprise for you, because living in South Africa, you never went out for fish. That was not a thing that you did.
No, I'm very glad and I'm very grateful I get the opportunity to eat good fish as often as I do these days. We are slowly trying to get better at making it at home, but that's a big confidence thing, and we've done it once or twice.
Yeah.
Both times successfully, and hopefully as we grow in confidence, we'll do it more often. Okay. What's your next one, Liz?
All right. My last one is that Portugal is so unbelievably dog friendly. And this is something that I expected some level of dog friendliness. Coming from the US, I think I expected to be able to take the dog to a few places here and there. I think from South Africa, you weren't really expecting to take a dog anywhere.
Yeah, we don't take our dogs on adventures there.
No. But in Portugal, Henry can basically come everywhere with us. And I think it's so amazing. And also, people really treat their dogs like family in a different way than I've seen in the US. So in the US, people treat their dogs like family in that they're constantly buying things for them and feeding them the best food and making sure that they're very well taken care of. But they often leave them at home to go to places because they wouldn't be allowed. In Portugal, Henry's allowed in the shopping mall. Yeah. Henry's allowed in all restaurants. He's allowed in 90% of the places that we go. And most dogs are not on a lead because they're so well trained and so well behaved. And they interact really well with each other because they're well trained and well behaved, and they're not a problem. And I think that because of this, everywhere is welcoming to dogs. Even places that might have a sign that says no dogs, we show up with our dog and people are like, oh no, don't worry, he's fine. Like, come on in.
There's like some discretion around the whole thing. It's not like this giant wild animal that you've dragged in from the bush or anything like that. It's this tiny, handsome little gentleman, and he's very charming in the way that he looks and he behaves. So he gets a little bit of special treatment here and there from everyone. But no, I would agree. Portugal's really good when it comes to taking into account the role of animals in our lives. Can I say one more thing before we move on to the next section? I did want to say that, we're sharing all of these surprising and wonderfully good things that we experienced in Portugal. And I'm really glad we're talking about it. But I also want to say that I know that there are a lot of people who might listen to this and very quickly bring up exceptions of, oh, you know what, you ate that cake, but I had cake once and it was terrible. Or, like you're speaking so highly of Portuguese children, and I know a Portuguese child, that's terrible. And, and I know that that's what's happening. And, I want to draw attention to the fact that so much of the media that we consume and that's forced down our throats really is highlighting those exceptions and creating false impressions of what a place is like based on those terrible exceptions that are being pushed into our faces. And I know that there are a lot of people who get triggered and engage in knee-jerk behavior that is very negative, that's attached to negative depictions of what's going on around the world, really. It's not just Portugal. And I would say, bear in mind that not a lot of people take a lot of time to talk about how nice the fish is in a place. Not a lot of people take time to create content or make videos or create a podcast or sing a song about how nice the fresh orange juice is at the supermarket. And that's the problem, is that there's no balance. And so please, if you are aware of there being exceptions to the stuff that we're saying, we know it too. But we're actually talking about what we see on a day-to-day basis. And maybe it's not so bad that we feel that there's good stuff about society too. Let's move on to the next section, Lizzie.
I love it. So now we're going to hear from some other expats in Portugal. So first we have Jane, who is Welsh, but spent 30 years of her life in Hong Kong before moving to Portugal. And Jane says that Portugal actually felt like it was a home because it was so much like Macau, and it was familiar because she felt like she already knew a bit about Portuguese culture because she had been to Macau so often. And I think that's so interesting because you don't think of all of these Portuguese colonies that have kept parts of Portuguese culture. And I know this is a whole conversation on colonialism and how terrible it was, and we're not condoning any of that by any means. But I think it is interesting to see the parts of the culture that stuck and the parts of the culture that were able to stand the test of time.
Oh, I would agree. One of my favorite things about Portugal is the interesting ways that they've contributed towards the world's cultures. I know, as you say, I know that there's all of this conversation around colonialism, and I get that there's a time and a place for that. But I'm so taken aback sometimes when you hear about the story that Vindaloo curry is from Portugal.
Yeah.
It's a portmanteau of wine and garlic that creates that.
Vin and alho are wine and garlic.
That's it. I didn't know that.
Samosas.
And samosas are Portuguese. They're not Indian. I mean, they are Indian now, but that was the introduction. And there's so many of these interesting things. I come from a place in South Africa called KwaZulu-Natal. Natal means Christmas. And that's in Portuguese, and that's associated to the travel around that particular part of the world by Portuguese sailors hundreds of years ago. And, it's such a fascinating thing. And when Jane talks about Macau being so similar to what mainland Portugal is like, that's really so fascinating. Wow.
Our next one is also from Jane, and she says, we moved to Setúbal without any knowledge of the place or where we would live, and it turned out to be the most perfect place for us. So it was taking a chance and it really working out for us. And I think this one is so amazing too, that some people are going to plan every single part of their move abroad. And they're going to take 6 years to meticulously figure out exactly where they're going to go and what they're going to do. And other people like Jane and like us are going to be a bit more spur of the moment about it, a bit more spontaneous. And I think that when you roll those dice, it is great to hear from someone else who rolled the dice and it worked out.
Yes, it's a very high stakes game, playing that, and really sometimes it's nice to see it working out for people and giving hope for wherever it is that you might go, and I mean that even for people for whom it doesn't work one time, because the next time you try it, it might work, because it sometimes can be that random. And I'm super glad it worked out for Jane because she's awesome.
I know, we love Jane.
She's such a great lady. All right, my turn. Gareth, who's also from Wales and a great paddle player. He talks about finding out that Portugal is so relaxed, more so than Spain and the other countries he knows in Europe, especially the UK. The vibe is definitely more family orientated and more personal. no one speeds you along and is happy to have a chat, which is frustrating for other people, but is so great if you're not working and you have that time. And I think that's really such a good point that he made there of time, of the relationship between Portuguese people and time. It is a double-edged sword. There is incredible frustration when you need to move really quickly sometimes, and that's not the natural speed of the country. But then when you do have a moment where you want to soak in being alive and living and feeling and breathing, I don't know. I've got to say, I think Portugal might be up there in being a spot where you can be pretty damn human in realizing your own existence, experiencing that in its fullness, and even in that depth is good and bad in the sense that it might psych you out because you're going to need to ask yourself some very real questions because you'll be alone with your thoughts because everything's moving that slowly. And it can be something that might allow you to answer some of those questions and teach you about yourself and allow you to experience your own existence in a very new and interesting way if you're coming from somewhere else.
It's true. It forces you to slow down.
Yeah.
And I think that you can react to that with frustration or acceptance.
Well, both, I feel sometimes. Because,
Yeah.
because I think there's some days where I get very frustrated at the Pingados line where I'm buying my KK and someone's talking nonsense at the teller and, I'm waiting to get back home to eat my KK.
Uh-huh.
And then there's other times where later on the same day I'm sitting and I'm eating my KK and no one is on my on my case trying to get things done, and I'm just able to enjoy it. And I feel like I'm not able to enjoy it that way in many other places, So yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Anna, who is originally from Serbia. And actually the reason that we moved to Setúbal in the first place, because she was living there, invited us over for a barbecue, and the rest was history. And Anna says, I think even if bureaucracy is slow, I was surprised that people that we had contact with were always kind and helpful. I think that this one is a really great point because as frustrating as the bureaucracy in Portugal is, and it is, and everyone will tell you that it is, the people that you're dealing with throughout the process of that bureaucratical disaster are generally not jerks.
No, I think everyone accepts the awfulness of the bureaucratic process together. And in a very frustrating and weird way, there's some beauty around it. The people who are behind the desk are not happy about being there. You're on the other side of the desk. You're not happy about being there. You're both frustrated that the policy and the system that you're needing to use is terribly outdated and inefficient, and it's making life difficult for both of you. And everyone is just trudging through the mud at the same speed, trying to get to where we're going. And I think that there have been so many times where I've even connected with people who are trying to help me as best they can in accepting the fact that, like, we don't know why it's this way, dude. And we're just doing what we can. And you have a bit of a laugh sometimes, So next up we have Milos, who's married to Anna and is also from Serbia. And he says that people in Portugal have a relaxed vibe. For example, when they go out, people are chilled and relaxed and aren't really in a rush. And that is really such a quality experience to go through, because it's not just a case of it being on one particular evening where everyone's relaxed. It's something that you can actually bank on, which I think really changes the way in which you experience things. One of our favorite things to do is to sit in the town square and have a cup of coffee or a small beer. And if you just sit there long enough, maybe like 15, 20 minutes, someone that you know is going to walk past and they're going to definitely be able to stop and have a drink with you and talk about what they've been doing for the day and where they're off to and what they're going to be doing this weekend. And that's one of my favorite things about the place.
Yeah, me too. I think there's been so many times where we've been sitting in that square and not expecting anything. And then you see someone and end up spending 4 hours with them because it is this real vibe of no rush, relax, chill, and let's see where the night will take us.
Yeah, no, it's really an awesome thing. The other thing that Milos raises is he says that Portugal still has unexplored territories and it's still not completely taken over. For example, how the coast is. And there's still so much more to explore. And I think that's so true, and it ties in very much with what you were talking about earlier, about there being so much diversity in such a small place.
Exactly.
So much to see, so much to do, and so much of it is dependent on you taking the time to actually go, rather than just following the beaten path that's often laid out for so many people who come to this country.
And it really does feel so special when you go to a place that is unexplored and you get to explore it.
It's one of those fresh examples of travel. People who know, if you know, one of those things where you sometimes go to a place and you realize that, hey, you know what? This isn't part of the travel tour that is being sold to everyone. And it's this special feeling that you get where you know that what you're experiencing is truly special. And there's so much of that available in Portugal for the right people, I guess.
Thank you so much to Jane and Gareth and Anna and Milos for sharing. That was really great. We agree with so many of these and also just love to hear your perspectives. So thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Last up, we have our Would You Rather. And this week is a Would You Rather Portuguese edition. Ryan, are you ready?
I hope so, Liz.
All right. Would you rather take a first-time visitor to Portugal to the north or to the south?
Oof, this is controversial, I guess, hey?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my answer. I would take this new visitor to the north of Portugal. I would take them to the north of Portugal because they need to see Porto. They need to see the Douro River Valley. And I feel as though those are still uniquely Portuguese experiences, which are holistic in the culture.
Okay.
As opposed to, and this is where it gets bad, the Algarve, which is in the south, where I think that it's Portuguese light. I think that it's Diet Portugal. I think that it's Portuguese flavor. I don't think that it's as authentic as I would want it to be to show to someone brand new.
And by saying that, you're saying that a lot more English is spoken. There's a Tesco. There's a British supermarket in the Algarve.
Portugal with training wheels.
Yeah.
And if that's your jam, absolutely. We enjoy going down there
For sure.
regularly. It's a great place to be. But if you're coming there and it's your first time and you want to know what this country is about, and I have to choose between north and south, I'm going to take you north.
So here I'm going to agree with you that the north is more Portugal and the south is more Portugal light. And my answer to this would you rather is going to be a bit of a cheat, but it depends on the visitor. Because if it is a visitor who has never really traveled before and they are an English speaker and they're quite scared of being abroad, taking them to the south where English is spoken by almost everyone, they can get their familiar foods, they can get their familiar hotels, they can get their more familiar experience while still getting some Portugal, they're going to have a great time. Versus if you have someone who it's their first time in Portugal, but they are a bit more of an experienced traveler, then I'm taking them to the north to see some of the more authentic Portugal experience like what you talked about.
Or they could just stay at home, get some Nando's, sit in the sun, and, that would be it. But
no, but the South has some beautiful things as well. The beaches in the South are incredible.
The Algarve, they've got the grottos, they've got those beautiful cliffside beaches. It's gorgeous, and I think point taken. I think you're onto something there.
Okay, next up, would you rather eat arroz pato or bacalhau brás?
Well, why don't you tell us what those things are, Liz, first of all?
Okay, so arroz pato is a duck rice. So In Ryan terms, it's almost like a duck biryani, but with different spices.
Let's not get carried away here, but I see where you're coming from.
And then bacalhau bras. Bacalhau is codfish, so it's a salted cod, and it's mixed with scrambled eggs, thinly cut fried potatoes, some onions, and some black olives. And it looks kind of like an omelet, but the taste is, it's fish. It's mainly fish and potatoes, and the egg is more like a binder.
It's a really interesting dish. And quick story on that. On the second day that we lived in Portugal, we got pulled into some person's restaurant who said, we've got the best bacalhau brush. You should eat this. And we said, okay.
And we had never had this dish before.
I think it might have been our first Portuguese dish that we actually ate in this country. And we ate it, and it was phenomenal.
Incredible.
It was one of the most delicious things I had ever eaten.
The potatoes were crispy. The cod wasn't too salty. The onions were caramelized and incredible and brought this sweetness to it. It was so good.
And we have never had bacalhau brush like that since. It's been,
but I keep ordering it.
and so we know what it could be, but it hasn't been that good since. And it's been many, many years now. I have since given up, so I don't order that anymore.
I have not, and the answer to my would you rather is bacalhau brush, and I'm going to keep hoping to relive.
Continue to live a life of disappointment while I eat my arroz pato, which is duck rice. It's duck rice is nice. It's solid. You know what you're getting. It's generally prepared the same way, and that's my answer, man. I wish you the best of luck with your bad bacalhau brush as it is ongoing. What's our next one?
Last one. Would you rather go to a Pimba show or a fado show? So these are two different kinds of Portuguese music. So straight from Google, Pimba is a genre of Portuguese music characterized by its upbeat, often humorous and sexually suggestive lyrics, and its simple melodies, repetitive rhythms using instruments like an accordion and some synthesizers. And the term is derived from a hit song called Pimba Pimba by singer Emmanuel. Versus fado. Fado is a traditional Portuguese musical genre known for its mournful, melancholic style and lyrics that express themes of fate, longing, saudade, love, and loss. Typically sung by a solo vocalist, a fadista, fado is accompanied by a wire-strung acoustic guitar and the unique pear-shaped Portuguese guitar. The word fado comes from the Latin fatum, meaning fate or destiny. I am going Pimba! Pimba, Pimba, Pimba. I think it is hilarious. I love it. The action at a Pimba show is so great. I was working for an NGO that had a little bar food stand during a concert of Pimba, and I was getting to serve beers and sing Pimba at the concert, and I had a phenomenal time.
You know, I was going to choose fado, but I know that fado has the ability to play on my natural pessimistic and melancholic tendencies. So I'm going to go with Pimba too, just because it keeps me moving. It keeps me alive a little bit, because once fado starts playing, you know, man, that music does its job.
It's beautiful, but it's so sad.
Oh, and I mean, I don't know. Sad is, I don't know if sad is the right word, Liz.
Yeah.
You know why? Because sad is like Death Cab for Cutie. That's sad. Fado is rolling around on the ground being sad. You know, the dramatic, like, no, everything is wrong. The world is going to end. That's what fado is. And I do enjoy it, because I do think that it's interesting and it is beautiful music. And honestly, the people who are performing fado these days are so talented musically.
It's true.
And I really enjoy that. But I think maybe sometimes to counteract the saudade, Pimba might be the tonic for it. Well, everyone, that is our show for this week. It's about the biggest positive surprises we got after moving to Portugal. And I really hope you enjoyed it. And we want to say thank you again so much to Jane, Gareth, and Milos for sharing. We always are so happy to hear about other people's experiences in Portugal and around the world with all of the things that are part of this life that we all share, which is such an adventure. Please reach out to us and share your experience. You can find us on Instagram at expatsListen, or you can send us an email on expatslisten@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you. Please rate the show, leave a review, tell us what you thought, leave some stars for us. We'd really appreciate it. Share, subscribe. It really goes a long way to helping the show reach the right ears, and we'd really appreciate that. And until we speak again, goodbye.